Welcome back to Something More to Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Collins.
And I'm Adam Culbertson. There's really a lot to talk about this week, but I don't know. It's been a pretty busy week, and I don't know. I got a headache today, so it's not helping. But we had the shit. I hate to start off with it with the shooting.
Yeah, I mean
the New Zealand shooting.
Sometimes it's good to actually kind of address the elephant in the room anyway. Yeah, and that's something that we really don't mind doing. It is pretty depressing and getting into this stuff, but it's something that we don't mind doing. Like when we started this podcast, I was looking up like what people were looking for in podcasts and everything like that. And one of the things was when people would ask, hey, should I do a political podcast? Should I do a religious podcast? And stuff like that. And so many people were like, don't do that. It's so much work. You have to worry about all the backlash from it and everything like that. I don't really care about that. Like that's stuff that people are avoiding to talk about when people need to talk about it. Especially with politics. People really need to talk about politics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we don't really get into too much on religion. I don't think we've gotten on religion at all.
Not really.
I mean, I guess I'm an atheist. So, I mean, I don't practice anything. I grew up Christian, but yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think really with religion, it's kind of one of those things that I think it's largely kind of a personal thing.
Yeah.
There are definitely cases where it gets out of hand, extremism in any religion, really.
Yeah.
But I think for just your normal average religious person, like it's really more of a personal thing and not something that can really be refuted.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess my biggest thing on religion is the organizations, not the individuals.
And there are definitely some really shady organizations in religion. And, actually really not even just the extremists. You have some organizations within religion that really are only doing it to prey on people.
Yeah.
Take advantage of people, take their money, and just, call it religion.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of taking money, and this gets off of what we were about to get into, is one of the biggest, I gotta scroll up. I was just reading it, like just looking for stuff to talk about this morning. I haven't really had time to think for the past like 4 or 5 days, basically since we released the podcast last week.
It's been kind of a busy week.
Yeah. Okay, so the National Christian Foundation, it's the U.S.'s 8th largest nonprofit like Christian donation service or whatever. Or organization. And they reportedly channeled $56.1 million to hate groups.
Jeez.
Yeah. They actually they accepted over $12 billion in contributions and made over $10 billion in giver recommended grants to more than 55,000 charities. Like, so all of the stuff that they that people donated through them to give to these different organizations weren't all to hate groups. Like they were for good things too. But 56 million were given to hate groups that are anti-LGBT, anti-Muslim, anti-immigration. That stuff shouldn't be on there. That shouldn't be a choice for people to donate to one of the biggest Christian organizations.
And I think it's one of those things where a lot of people lose sight of what supposedly being Christian is all about. I mean, the whole idea, at least, as you're told,
the whole idea behind Christianity is about, loving your neighbors, like, caring for each other, and generally just being a good person.
Yeah.
And there's so many of these groups that, they just claim, oh, well, we're Christian and everything, but all they really ever do is just, spout all of this stuff about, oh, well, how this group is just horrible, or that group is horrible, or this group is just out to get us, and we're just trying to like stop them from coming in and ruining our country and all this other kind of stuff. And it's just like, I mean, really, I don't think that kind of thought line really belongs in any religion.
No, it really doesn't. And all the religions are so similar to each other. I don't understand why there is any hatred for each other.
And I wouldn't say that every religion is necessarily like all the same, but definitely
I just said similar.
Well, no, similar, but definitely the biggest religions like Christianity, Judaism, and Muslim, they're all basically the same religion, just kind of off like a little bit. Like, oh well, they got off and stopped here. Like this one kind of continued the storyline and like ended here, and this one kind of continued further and ended here, but it's all essentially the same religion.
Yeah, same God.
Yeah.
The exact same God.
But it's so ridiculous. And I mean, if you want to take it a step further, then you have Mormonism.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole episode right there.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it's just there's so many horrible things that are done in the name of religion.
Yeah. Yeah. And this shooting was a hate crime.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that just it got to me, and the thing is, he does it every single time something like this happens, is Trump gets on Twitter or gets up and does a speech, and he literally encourages people to stand up and bear arms against people, and saying that his bikers for Trump they're not.
But he absolutely goads people into violence.
Yeah, he's saying they're bad people, like they're tough people, like you back them into a corner and they're gonna get you.
Mm-hmm.
Like.
But yeah, no, a lot of the things that he does, like, really is trying to spur people on into violence.
Yeah. Yeah. And every time it's led to something like the Air Force guy that had just this massive amount of weapons, and he was planning on killing a bunch of people.
Yeah.
That was the last time something happened here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking up stuff, because when all the talk about thoughts and prayers, that was a huge topic. Right. whenever this happened was thoughts and prayers. Yes, thoughts and prayers are great.
Mm-hmm.
Mourning, yes, you need to mourn people, but you can't stop trying to take an action against this kind of stuff.
Right.
Just because you mourn doesn't mean you can't stand up and take an action against it.
Right.
Like, don't let these people die in vain.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, like, it's not enough to just essentially just wishfully think that everything is going to go right.
The thoughts and prayers thing just gets me sometimes. I'm like, somebody has cancer, thoughts and prayers. Like, oh, well, you beat cancer. Oh, well, God took care of you. You didn't beat cancer. It was God's will. What the hell did prayer have to do with anything there? Like,
yeah,
if it's God's will, no amount of prayer is going to change God's will if in that mentality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where the two ideas don't really mesh very well. It's like either everything is already according to God's plan, or else your praying somehow is going to change his mind, but like those two things can't both be true, really.
Yeah.
Like if he is like omniscient, like knows everything and everything is the way that it's supposed to be, then like your opinion isn't really necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, really. Like, that's what I don't get. What's the point of prayer? But I mean, I understand.
I think, at least from a certain standpoint, I think the idea behind it is it's kind of like meditation.
And see, with that like frame of mind, like, yes, that makes sense, but praying for
right, it's
help.
not enough. It's not enough to just pray for something to happen. There still has to be action.
Yeah.
Like it's, I think, really, at least a practical use for prayer, like maybe even what originally, a long time ago was the idea behind the idea of praying, was just a time to kind of sit, think, collect your thoughts, and ponder on what you should do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can't just stop at wondering, well, what should I do?
Yeah.
Like, you have to actually follow through.
Oh, yeah. Take the opportunities that are giving you. Like, I guess it reminds me of this, I guess it's kind of a joke or something. I don't know what else to call it. But about the guy was on his roof. His house was being flooded. Huge flood. Like, guy in a car comes by. He's like, hey, like, let's get out of here. Big truck or something. He's like, hey, let's get out of here. And he's like, oh, no, God'll take care of me.
Yeah.
Guy leaves. Water raises up. Guy comes by on the boat. He's like, come on, get in. We got to get out of here. It's getting worse. And he's like, oh, I have faith in God. I have faith that God will take care of me. And then eventually the dude dies. I don't know the whole thing off the top of my head, but eventually the dude dies, and he's like, God, he gets up in heaven. He's like, God, why didn't you save me? He's like, I sent a car and a boat and like whatever else was in the story. But
yeah,
he's like, why did you take that? I tried to save you.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think that's kind of an aspect that oftentimes gets missed in everything, is the only way that any of that really makes sense is if things aren't like just blatantly, openly, just like God reaches down and picks somebody up and moves them over.
Yeah. Whenever has that happened? Never.
So it just kind of also does illustrate that whole thing that you, even if you're religious, even if you're praying for something to happen, you still have to do stuff. Like, you still can't just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Like, the extent of my religious knowledge, there's nowhere anywhere that it's just like, oh yeah, just pray to God for things will happen, you don't have to worry about it, just sit back, it's fine.
Yeah. But that's I remember going to church and them saying that, though, that you pray to God and God will take care of you, but his will be done.
Yeah.
It just contradicts itself. And when you pray for that, or help or guidance or something, I don't know. If anything,
it kind of shows an amount of hubris to think, oh, well, there's this grand scheme that God knows about and is making sure it happens and everything. But because I prayed to him, like, because I'm the one who was just like, hey, this should happen. Yeah. Change things.
Yeah. What's so special about you?
How arrogant do you have to be to think, oh yeah, well, my input like actually detailed the whole cosmic plan. Like, it's because I wanted this to happen that, everything in the universe works around this.
Yeah. Yeah. And then again, with that arrogance is, my religion is right. Everybody else is going to hell. What makes you so special? Like, you are a sinner too. Like, there is nothing about you that isn't 100% good.
I don't know. I think when it really comes down to it, the best purpose, maybe the real purpose of religion within like society and as an advancing like civilization, like the reason why religion came about in the first place, is really a way of instilling a sense of morality. And in some cases that got a little off kilter.
Yeah.
But I think at its core, most religions were there to try and get people to behave a certain way, typically for the good of society. Because, transitioning from being a nomadic culture to, actually settling down in cities, like, having to deal with much larger communities, like at a certain point, there has to be some kind of authority, whether, it be a person that takes charge or creating a religion to say, oh, well, this is the reason why everything is and the reason why you should behave the way that you do. There has to be some kind of overbearing authority to try and keep people in line to be able to coexist.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, I think some people, some very bad people really, kind of took a look at this and decided, oh, hey, well, we can use the same system to manipulate people to do whatever we want.
Yep.
And not just, to coexist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you end up with all of these extremist groups and, these groups that are killing all of these people or those people in the name of religion or, persecution based on religion because, oh, well, your thing can't be true because our thing is true.
Yeah. And it's not just one religion that's doing it. It's all of them. There are Christian terrorists.
There are extremists in every religion. I mean, it's not something that's unique to Muslim. It's not something that any religion is really free of, save for maybe Buddhism. But
yeah,
Buddhism
but that's not really
also,
a religion.
Yeah, Buddhism's a little different than a religion. I don't know. It's just, it'd be kind of hard to imagine like a Buddhist just being like, oh, well, I'm trying to attain nirvana and they're screwing it up for me, so they need to go.
Yeah. What? Who does the setting themselves on fire in their peaceful or like non-harm to other people, like protest setting themselves on fire? Who does that?
I want to say, and I could be completely off kilter, but I want to say that was Tibetan monks.
That sounds
when
right.
They were
yeah,
protesting like China's control over Tibet.
Yeah.
And I believe that they do practice a form of Buddhism.
Yeah. Okay. But that's not hurting anybody. That's only hurting themselves.
Right. I mean, in either case, it is definitely nonviolent.
Yeah.
And history has shown that with determination, it is possible to resolve things nonviolently.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look at Gandhi.
Yeah.
Gandhi is such a great example of someone who was determined to make a change. He was determined not to try and do so violently. And I mean, he really did, in a lot of ways, affect change. Like he's a large part of the reason why Britain no longer controls India.
Mm-hmm.
Like you look at like Nelson Mandela in South Africa, it's a lot of the same. Like, people absolutely can affect change without violence.
Yeah.
But, it's not easy. It takes determination and it takes doing.
Even over here, you got Martin Luther King Jr.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
He was killed.
Mm-hmm. And it's just because his way of thinking, like the things that he was espousing, threatened the control and like the stability of another group. Yeah. Because, they didn't want this to happen because they felt threatened. And so they killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's horrible to think that anybody would be willing to kill somebody just to try and keep an entire race down, really.
Yeah. I mean, everybody needs equal rights. Like, we're all people.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing different about us. Like, we're all people.
Mm-hmm.
We're all humans.
Like, especially when you get into like DNA and everything, there's so much more. Like we are more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
Like we are more identical than we are different at all.
Yeah.
If you really get into the scheme of things.
Yeah. I mean, all different skin colors is just evolution from different regions. Like that's all absolutely. It is.
It's darker skin because, they had much more, heavy sun, like all the time. Like they didn't have a very sheltered area to live in. And so the natural like change, like the change that happened in them to accommodate was that their skin darkened so that they would be able to stay out in the sunlight for longer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like
comparing it to other species, like that's why like wolves and polar bears and stuff like that live in Arctic regions.
Yeah.
They have an undercoat that keeps them warm.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. It's why, especially when you look at like Arctic foxes versus like the red-tailed foxes.
Yeah.
Like the difference is they're in a different environment. So like the Arctic foxes fur becomes white so that they blend in with their environment.
Yeah. Just evolution like doesn't mean that somebody is lesser of a person than you or me or.
Well, and I think, that's something else that would be good to touch on here is because I feel like a lot of people misunderstand what evolution is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, like the fundamentalists and everything, kind of think, oh, well, evolution is this mysterious force that just goes through and changes everything. And it's not really that way at all. What it really comes down to is probability.
Yeah.
I mean, over the course of thousands of years and millions, if not billions or trillions of iterations of a single creature, like there are going to be genetic defects. Like there are going to be things that are different. And essentially traits that are more beneficial, that allow them to have an advantage in their environment, allow them to live longer, to flourish more, mean that they're going to procreate more. The more that they procreate, the more that gene gets spread out. And the more that gene gets spread out, the more that it becomes prevalent in a particular area for a particular species.
Yeah.
Like, it makes perfect sense if you really step back and think about it. But it's not like some force. It's not like some guiding thing saying, oh, well, this is the way that things should be. It's quite simply just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why Neanderthals died out.
Oh, yeah. And not every like evolutionary change is even beneficial. Like sometimes it just so happens that, and I mean, when you look at, animal like mating rituals and everything and like plumage and whatnot, it's not necessarily that plumage helped them survive, but that plumage helped them attract mates, which helped them procreate more, which spread that throughout the species.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's one of those things that I think people have a hard time fathoming the way that statistics ends up working at really large numbers. Because, I mean, when you start getting into numbers like trillions or quadrillions or anything like that, I mean, it starts reaching a point where even if something is nigh on impossible, it probably is going to happen at least once.
Yeah. So did you see that they're actually banning the weapons that were used at the shooting? Right.
The military, was it military automatic weapons?
Military automatic weapons, any upgrades that could be done to a weapon that would make it military grade.
And personally, I have no problem with that. I think, like, as a civilian, there's no real reason to need anything like that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not against the idea of having a gun for protection.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, military grade automatic is, like, way overboard.
Yeah. And see, like, they are not taking away all guns. They are not taking that away. And that's not what politicians here, they're not trying to take away guns. They're trying to strengthen gun control.
Right. And like I said, for the most part, like, and not speaking for everybody, but for the most part, politicians here are not trying to just, oh, well, nobody should have guns anytime ever.
Yeah.
Like, they're just trying to regulate who has guns and what kinds of guns they have.
Yeah. Nobody needs an assault rifle.
No. There's no practical use for an assault rifle. It's not a good, like, home defense weapon. It's not a good hunting weapon. But, like, and even if you try and bring in the argument of, like, recreation, like, at a certain point, like, I think recreation isn't a good enough reason for something to be illegal.
And to be owned by an individual. Right. Like, I can understand using it as a recreation at a shooting range. Like, you can be like, hey, I want to shoot that M4 or something like that. And
I've heard of some kind of things where you can pay to, like, go out and they have, like, a tank for you to just kind of, like, drive around.
Yeah, stuff like that. Stuff like that.
But yeah, like as kind of more of just like a novelty thing for you to go and just kind of play around with.
Yeah.
But not necessarily to own or have at home.
See, that's recreation. Owning
Yeah.
it. What's really? Like, I hear on a consistent basis, like assault rifle fire in
Really?
the distance, like from my house, like just because like people do it.
And it's like, it frustrates me because there are practical reasons for guns to be there, but these people are so hardcore about, oh, well, we need to have all of our kinds of guns and automatic weapons and all this other stuff, that all of it gets grouped together. Like, and so it's almost like they're making people have no other choice. It's either you ban guns or you don't.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's not right. Like, it really needs to have a separation, a division, because they're not the same thing.
And even though people are saying gun control, people are like, they're trying to take away our guns. All of our guns, we're going to lose all of our guns. They're taking away our rights.
Right.
And that's not the case. And people need to understand that is not what they're saying. Don't, like, actually look into it. Actually read what the legislation is about and everything that they're trying to get. And not just be like, oh, they're taking our guns.
Right.
That even goes back to the whole gas thing and trying to get renewable fuels and stuff like that. Oh, they're taking away our trucks.
Yeah.
No, they're not trying to take away your trucks.
And it's there's no way, like, it, especially in this country, there's no way that a change can happen that quickly.
No.
Like, that's one thing I got to give to New Zealand in all of this is, it is amazing how fast they were basically like, okay, well, we're basically cutting off all of these automatic military grade weapons effective immediately.
Yeah. And they cut off all sales of it. They cut off all sales of the upgrades, attachments, everything like that. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we know a lot of people own these weapons. A lot of people own all this stuff. Mm-hmm. You have time to turn it in. Right. We are not going to prosecute you whether you turn it in early or late.
Right.
We're not going to prosecute you. We just want the stuff off the streets.
Right.
You bring it to us. We say thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Now, do you know, is there like some kind of like compensation?
That I don't know. I don't know. I didn't read anywhere that there was going to be any compensation. I'm hoping that there is some sort of compensation.
Yeah, I mean that would be good, because I can definitely see how that would rub people pretty raw if it was just like, oh, well, we're taking all of this stuff and we're just taking it. You don't get anything for it. Bye.
Yeah. Oh, extended magazines was extended clips and magazines. That was another thing that isn't necessary for you to have. I mean, if you're hunting, you're not going to unload an entire magazine into a deer.
That's very true.
You're going to ruin the meat. You're going to ruin the trophy skin or head or whatever. You have more chances of ruining it.
Right.
It's not practical.
Yeah, no. Like, anytime you're hunting, you want to take the target down in one shot whenever possible.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, I could not imagine legislation going through that quickly on basically anything in this country.
Oh, man.
Not the way things are now.
It would be awesome if it could, because I looked it up. Whenever the shooting happened, I looked it up. How many mass shootings have there been in this country alone since that happened? Because it was really bothering me how much people were like, we need to chill out right now and we just need to mourn. No. Because people like AOC was like, we need to take action because this isn't just a singular problem. This is happening all over the place for multiple different reasons.
Oh yeah.
It's attacking churches here. It's attacking everywhere, not just this country.
Some of it's religious, some of it's racial, like some of it is just people being crazy. Like, I mean, there's not like a single reason for all of it, but there are definitely things that we could start addressing. Like, we could definitely address, and, you know, I know we've said before, but, you know, about the stigma of mental illness in the country.
Yeah.
Like, I think that really being able to open up people about, you know, addressing mental illness and being able to get proper treatment and help, I think would help a lot in trying to stymie a lot of these incidents.
Yeah. Yeah, it really would. So there was a mass shooting yesterday, or 2 days ago. 4 injured, 2 killed. Like, just for example, in Phoenix, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
There has been 62 mass shootings in this country alone since January 1st.
62?
Today's March 21st.
Jeez. I mean, that's very scarily close to 1 a day.
Yeah. Okay, so in the last 80 days, there has been 62 mass shootings in this country.
I mean,
how is gun control not a problem to most people?
Insane. I mean,
to everybody. Shit.
I mean, that's ridiculous. And no, it's absolutely true. Like, there's no way you can just sit there and like grieve when something like this happens, because it's happening again just the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like more than every other day. Like, we have we've had 18 days break spread out over the course of 80 days where there wasn't a mass shooting.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's definitely a problem. And there's a lot of contributing factors, but we've got to start doing something about it.
Yeah, we can't do nothing. And all these stories of the Russians feeding money through the NRA to politicians because the NRA gives money to politicians.
Yeah.
I mean, well, one a Russian agent, she just got taken in.
Oh yeah.
Like in the last day or two. I don't remember her name. I was just reading about it. I didn't look into it a whole lot. But and she was one of the people feeding money into the NRA.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can find her name real quick. Butina, alleged Russian agent Maria Butina. She's poised to plead guilty in case involving suspected Kremlin attempts to influence the NRA. Okay, so all these people, there's a lot of people out there in this country that freaking loves Russia all of a sudden.
Yeah.
in the past 3-4 years. Like, they just love Russia. Like, think if one of our agents was not even doing anything nowhere near this, but just a U.S. agent over in Russia just trying to find out information, not necessarily doing anything like trying to corrupt our government or their government or anything like that.
Right.
They wouldn't be alive.
You'd probably never hear about them again.
No. Like, you probably would never even hear about them.
I mean, I'm not saying that that's necessarily the way that things are there anymore, but I'll put it this way. Putin was the head of the KGB.
Yeah.
And I don't doubt that he still employs some of those tactics.
Yeah. I mean, you constantly are seeing stuff about people dying and everything. People that oppose Putin. Although
really, China is so much worse about that than Russia.
Oh,
is.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, there was even the whole incident in China with the president of in China with the residing president of Interpol disappearing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, he was in China because I think he was actually from China and just like up and disappeared.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely some shady shit in politics and in governments and everything. And this isn't I'm not saying anything bad against the people of the country, because they ultimately have no control over anything. Like, and we don't have control over anything here.
I mean, we have little control, and in some countries they have even less.
Yeah. I think we have more control over our local politics.
I would say we generally have a lot of control over our local politics.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, an individual has almost no control in the federal level.
No.
I mean, really, it's so largely ruled by groups that an individual person has almost no hope of really being able to get through.
Yeah. The only thing we can do is like what we're doing now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the biggest things that wanted me to get into doing podcasting and like choosing that we don't have like a limitation on topics or anything like that. We could talk about anything we want. So when stuff like this, and we do end up talking about politics a lot, is that people,
and it's not necessarily to tell people what to do, what to believe, what to think, anything
absolutely.
like that. We're trying to get people to look at the bigger picture and not just listen to people on the air and take what they see, go do research on it, and I'll say it again, think for themselves, make an opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, and I don't think there's nearly enough of that in this country. There's so many people, especially when it comes to elections, that just vote straight party.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just, I don't even think that should be a button.
No.
Like, it's just, like, they just come in and just go, oh, well, I'm going to vote straight Republican, or I'm going to vote straight Democrat. And then they just call it that.
No.
Because they don't want to put in the effort to actually learn about, the individual that's running things. They don't want to put in the effort to try and figure out who they think would be better for the job, or who would necessarily benefit them or their area by doing that job. Mm-hmm. Like, they just want to go, oh, well, I'm part of this party, so just whoever they say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've even not voted for some stuff. Like, if there is just one person on the ballot for a certain position, I went and on the local county website or whatever, and went through all the different people on the ballot. I come to one, it's just a Republican, or I don't even think there's any just a Democrat anywhere in this state, but but just a Republican, and the information on them is completely blank. I'm not going to vote on somebody I don't know anything about their policies. Yes, they're going to take that position, but I'm not going to vote on it.
Well, it's because most people just view it as, oh, whatever, he's the only one running, so I'll just vote for him anyway.
Yeah.
But
actually, I write in names.
Well, even if you don't write in names, what it really is, even if there's only one person there, that's your opportunity to basically show your approval or disapproval of their position.
Yeah.
Like, if there is information on them, it's your chance to say basically, like, yeah, I approve, I think that they would be good for this job, or no, I'm not going to vote for them because I don't think they're going to do a good job.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish there was some kind of write-in. You'd be like, there was no information on their policies. Why would I vote for somebody if I don't know anything about them?
When voting becomes more like a survey.
Yeah.
Like you're like, write in and everything. It's like, tell us why you did this.
I did this, but...
Can you give us a small paragraph on why you answered the way that you did?
Oh, man. But yeah. I think I actually voted for one Republican this past time, just because, like, what they had to say was actually pretty good. Like, or at least on paper, it looks good. I don't know how they think or anything, but at least what they've been running on and made sense.
And that's the whole thing. Like, it's not that, oh, well, the Republicans are bad, or, oh, the Democrats are bad. I mean, really, you should look at every race individually. Like, look at the people who are actually running. Look at the things that they're at least claiming to be about and claiming to be for. Like, look at as much of the facts of the matter as you can and decide who would be better, regardless of what party they're in.
Yeah.
It's one of those times where I'm kind of jealous of some of the other countries that, do have several parties.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, ideally, there wouldn't be parties.
Yeah, for real.
Ideally, there would be no such thing, and people would only be out there campaigning on their beliefs, like what they stand policies for, and people would be voting based on what they feel that the person representing them should be.
Yeah, we need to get rid of this stuff because it's causing a lot of problems.
But at least if you have several parties, it stymies that party power.
Yeah.
Like, having just two like we do, it's all just, it's black or white. It's this or that. It's this thing or this thing. And there's like no other option, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I know there's a lot of politicians. I'm sure there's a lot of politicians. I don't know for a fact, but There's people that end up settling for a party just because it's the closest thing to their beliefs.
Right.
And that's not good.
It's not.
We can't be happy with settling.
No. Absolutely
with limited choices. We don't need limited choices.
Right. I mean, it's kind of funny because especially in this, consumer based country that we have, there are so many things that are about, more choices and options and things like that. I mean, like, you have like Baskin Robbins, 31 flavors.
Oh,
like,
no.
it's about giving you as many options as you can have because, you get a much larger number of people interested. But then when it comes to politics, it's two basically.
Yeah. Because, I mean, is there anywhere where the Green Party has any substantial like position of power?
I don't.
Maybe on a state level somewhere, but
nothing like
county
major
level maybe.
I mean, you've got a few like House representatives, I think, that are independent.
Yeah,
but I don't think those are typically like perennially independent. Like it's not like that particular district always votes independent.
No, and I was just using Green Party as an example.
Right. And I'm just and I hate it, but it's like you can't, like, you have to really group all of the third parties together to really even start talking about them that way, because no one of them really has enough of a grip to be able to do anything like as a party.
Yeah. I like this whole social democracy movement.
Yeah.
Like, I've been going through all the different views on politics and everything, and social democracy just makes the most sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I agree, and it's one of those things where people have this idea in their head that socialism is opposed to capitalism, but that's not true at all. Like they're completely different axioms. Like socialism can absolutely coexist with capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no reason why it can't. They're two different things.
Yeah.
And I think really by incorporating some of those socialist ideas, you actually strengthen the capitalistic side of things.
Yeah.
Because if people generally have a better position, if they don't have to worry about living paycheck to paycheck, they're going to spend more money. That's just the way people are.
Yup.
So if we take care of people, like kind of bring the majority of the population like up to where everybody can live comfortably, then people are going to spend money, which means companies are going to make money, which means everybody's going to be happy.
Yep.
Like it's not going to be easy. It's not like, oh, well, you just wave a wand and everything's just perfect. Mm-hmm. But I see no reason why the two ideas can't coexist.
Yep. And that even makes more jobs, so more people make more money, so more people are better off. It's just a circle.
Oh yeah,
it's a circle.
Like it feeds itself.
Yep. I remember. Okay, so a big thing that I don't understand why the socialism, social democracy is such a big problem to people is, you remember when George W. Was president and we all got a check for like, I forgot how much it was. It was like $600. It wasn't even $600. It was like $300 or something like that to help boost the economy, for us to just go out and spend it and help boost the economy. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was nice getting it at the time. Mm-hmm. I don't remember the whole thing behind it, but I remember being told. I remember listening on conservative news radios and everything like that. They're like, "Oh, this is going to help boost the economy because people are going to spend the money and the businesses are going to get money, and then everybody's going to be happy." How is that any different? And that was under a Republican.
No, it's absolutely a socialistic idea.
Yes.
Like,
so
there's
why?
no denying that.
So it's...
Well, I think what it comes down to is there have been like certain fears that have been put in place in the American people at certain points in time to kind of say, oh, socialism bad. Like, looking at, because in essence, like the Soviet Union was not a good example of socialism, but they utilized some socialist functions.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of the hate towards socialism comes from that, the Red Scare, and like all of the anti-Russia, like Cold War and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, and, I'm still not exactly sure why, it seems weird to me. A lot of it is this kind of kickback, like this pushback against France for some reason, because France is very socialist.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems so weird to me. I don't understand it, but people in this country, like, they hate France.
I don't get it.
And I mean, it started even before 9/11, but after 9/11, like going to war in the Middle East and everything, people were basically anti-France because France was just like, no, we shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
And they were just like, we're not supporting you in doing this. And so they were like, oh, well, French are just a bunch of cowards, blah, blah, blah. And there was that whole thing where it's like, oh, well, you can't say French fries. You have to say freedom fries.
Oh, God, I remember that.
And it's like all this dumb stuff. And it's just kind of building into that idea. It's like, oh, well, France bad, so socialism bad. So, we don't want to be like those French cowards, so we don't want to be socialist.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't even understand that sentiment even though, because I mean, I'm not saying France has been like our closest ally, but I mean, if you look through history, there are definitely some cases where France has been pretty good to us.
Yes, France has been very good to us. They helped us in the Revolutionary
France
War.
Was a major ally in the Revolutionary War. I don't think we would have won that war without France's help.
Not at all.
I mean, but it's like, it's not only that, like and granted, they had their own reasons for it, but the whole Louisiana Purchase, like there's so many parts of our culture even that are kind of ingrained with France.
Yeah.
And it's like people just, people just get this idea stuck in their head, and that's just it. Like everything is going to be colored by, this preconceived notion.
Yeah.
And granted, it's hard to take a step back from your own thoughts and take a look at something objectively.
Yeah.
But I mean, people should try more. Like people should try to be as objective as possible, at least as much as they can.
And
like,
I think a good start for people to be more objective is to break that team mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's USA #1. No, like we need to worry about the entire world because the entire world affects us. Maybe. It might not affect us directly in our everyday lives, but everything going on in the entire world will affect us at some point.
No, absolutely.
Whether it's trade or war or peace. We need peace. Like that would be great if we could just have world peace, but it wouldn't happen anytime soon, especially with how things are going right now.
Maybe what it is we should stop referring to ourselves as the United States or the U.S. Because it almost feels like somehow subliminally people seeing U.S. just think us.
Yeah.
Us, us, us.
Yeah.
And it's just, we're just a part of the world. Like we have to be able to get along with everybody else that's in it.
We rely on other countries.
We rely massively on other countries
to get all kinds of things that we use, like this microphone.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's just to think, oh well, we're the only ones that are important is just arrogance.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I've been talking about it for a while now. Is just breaking that team mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Like before even podcasting, like,
oh yeah,
we're not the only people in this world.
Mm-hmm. And it's not to say that you can't have like competition or rivalry or things like that, but there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to find some amount of camaraderie in other people.
Yeah.
Like it's not like
That's what sports are for.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, even if you look at sports, it's not like as like a Carolina Panthers fan, you couldn't like go across the country to like hang out with like Oakland Raiders fans, and it's like you would have nothing in common.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same sport.
I mean, you see that kind of thing all the time where people are still friends. Like they maybe follow different teams, they support different teams.
Yeah,
but it's not like they're like at each other's throats about it.
Yeah,
like I mean, they're still fans of the game, really, and it's the same kind of thing. Like we're all humans.
Yeah,
like why do we have to be so invested in our team or our country that we've got to basically hate everybody else about it?
Yeah. Like I have issues with the NFL now because of the whole thing with Kaepernick.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was done wrong.
He was. That much is certain.
And I it's probably why I've kind of fallen off of the fantasy league and everything like that, just because I'm not watching it. I'm not supporting the NFL. Like with my time.
Well, I mean, and really the whole kneeling thing, it's like I don't understand at all like why that's supposedly like bad. Like how and since when has kneeling not been respectful?
Yeah. Like
they act like, oh well, they're kneeling during the national anthem. This is the most disrespectful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like it's not like they're like burning a flag or,
I know,
or like,
right?
You know,
they're not just standing
flipping
there.
Two big middle fingers off to everybody.
Peace among worlds, motherfuckers.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's kneeling.
Yeah.
It's respectful. It still kind of gets that protesting message across, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it does it in a respectful way.
Respectful, yeah. And all the backlash, like, I think whenever I stopped was when, because I'm a Cowboys fan. I've always been a Cowboys fan. And when Jerry Jones, he was supporting his team in protesting.
Right.
The heads of NFL, they were like, you're not going to be able to keep your team if you do this. And he was like, y'all can't protest.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're even forcing the owners. And I don't know everything involving that, but that was like when I was just like, you know what? I've been a football fan forever. I've been a Cowboys fan forever. And I mean, I it's still my team if like things get better, but I just have not been able to get myself to support the NFL in anything since that.
It's just, and maybe the worst part about it is it's a pretty legitimate protest.
Yeah, it is.
There are definitely still a lot of problems with the way that the black community is treated in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially when you look at like police brutality and violence.
Oh, yeah.
Like it is actually pretty ridiculous. Like the skew, when you look at the statistics of, the number of these types of incidents where the victim really is black versus, incidents where the victim is white.
Yeah.
I mean, it's skewed horribly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially when you consider like the population disparity. I mean, it's just, it would make no sense if everything was above board and normal. It would make no sense whatsoever for the majority of these incidents to be minorities.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like even whenever I was watching football with y'all, like Cowboys fan, you're a Panthers fan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no hate there. Cowboys play against the Panthers. Like, I'm pulling for the Cowboys. You're pulling for the Panthers.
Exactly.
Like, okay, cool.
And it's not like there's any like hatred between us or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a game.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, there was at one point where I did have that team mentality. I mean, my whole background was shaped around conservatism and team mentality and all the things that I am so against now.
But I think really it speaks more of you to have to come out of something like that.
Yeah.
To go from, being part of that whole, this is the way that things are and this is just how things are going to be, and being able to take a step back, and start looking at things a little more openly and start forming your own opinions.
Yeah.
Like it's so much harder if you've already been kind of, I mean, for lack of a better word, and really it just is indoctrination.
Yeah. Brainwashed.
To step back from indoctrination and start looking at things like for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like there's so many groups, and it's not even just religions, but like indoctrination is a part of so many groups.
Yeah.
Like luring people, oh, well, this is what you want. Like you want all of this, so you should come here. And then, you know, just building all of these reasons why you should stay. Like, it actually kind of goes back. I don't know if you saw, there's a documentary on Netflix currently called Behind the Curve.
No, I haven't watched it.
It's a documentary talking about flat earthers.
Oh yeah, I watched something on it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was a YouTube, and it was just like breaking down that. But I haven't watched the whole thing.
And well, the one of the things they bring up in that is that it's, even if you were to take one of the flat earthers and prove to them, like give them, which I mean, they've been given proof several times, but even if you just took one down, sat them down, just explained every bit of proof, like every reason why this is absolutely not true, the earth is round, like even if you were to take them up in space and show them that the earth is round, they would likely still be part of the flat earther group, because at this point they feel like they've ostracized themselves from normal society.
Yeah.
Like they've lost friends because they've been so hardcore about this.
Yeah.
And they feel like, well, I can't just go back now. I can't just like leave. Like I can't just leave this group of friends that I've made in the flat earthers and try and like, you know, slink my way back to my old friends and be like, well, you know, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I was an asshole about it.
The thing is, a lot of people would understand whenever you come to, and they're like, hey,
well,
you're finally
sure
thinking for yourself.
I'm sure a lot of people would, but that's kind of part of that whole indoctrination. That's part of how it works. It's not about like what will happen. It's about what you think will happen.
Yeah.
And they feel like they just don't have any more option. And that's part of the reason why some of these people defend these stances so adamantly, is because they can't afford to be wrong.
Yeah.
Like they feel like if they're wrong, then everything in their life has been for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can't be wrong.
Yeah. You know what? This whole like indoctrination and everything, I feel like my schizophrenia has led me to be more open-minded and question everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because before I was completely, I would parrot everything that I was hearing. I was never racist or hated other religions or anything like that. I was at least taught not to hate people and everything. I would listen to that on the radio, but I mean, my dad was good about like other religions are other religions. Like they're people too. Like everybody should be treated equal, everything Absolutely. Like that. But I still had a lot of the other stuff from like a big part of my beliefs were based off of Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, like all those guys. Like I would listen to them on the radio every single day, or if not on the radio, then online. No, I guess it's still radio. It was way before podcasts were easily accessible.
Right.
But when my schizophrenia started, it was like 8 years ago now. And I think, how old am I? 7 years ago.
Yeah.
In my mid-20s. Like it wasn't an immediate change. I think the whole religious thing started first. I had read the Bible multiple times leading up to me going to Afghanistan, and then my schizophrenia just started out of nowhere.
Right.
I had read the Bible multiple times. I had multiple different versions of it on audiobook. I had huge cases of of CDs of the audio Bible and all the different King James, New King James. I forgot all the names of them, but I listened to all of them. Sometimes I would sit down and I would read it while listening to it. And I had multiple different types of Bibles just to get the different translations, just see what was like missed, what was misinterpreted, and all that kind of stuff. And it was already starting to not make sense to me. I saw it as more of a way to control people.
Yeah.
And I do feel like if a lot of people did read the Bible, they could see that. But not necessarily everybody, because I have known people that have legitimately read the Bible and they were still super strong in their faith and everything like that.
And I mean, for some people, and like I said, this is kind of where it comes back to the thing about religion kind of being personal. I think for some people, it actually works for them. Like it's kind of a comfort, to be able to put everything to a higher power, to be able to just say, well, this is the way that things are, and it gives them some kind of grounding for existence and the reason why things are and the reason why things will be.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of helps a lot of people. And I'm not saying that religion is inherently bad.
No. And I don't have anything against people that do believe in a higher power and stuff like that. That's you. That's okay. It's not hurting me.
But there are a lot of people that take advantage of that. They take advantage of the fact that people are looking for something. And that's how you get like these televangelists and everything, where they're just out to scam people out of money constantly. Buy this prayer rag, and they don't tell you that you're going to be rich, but they strongly insinuate that, oh, well, these people who've bought our prayer rags have like come into a fortune like shortly after, and like all of their prayers were answered because they bought this prayer rag from us.
The little vials of holy water,
vials of holy water, things like that. I mean, there's always going to be people that try and prey on other people.
Yeah.
But it's even more reason that if you do choose to be religious, you should still at least try and think about what's going on. Like, you shouldn't just blindly go, oh, well, it's in the name of my religion, so it's got to be right. It's got to be good.
You can't just trust your preacher.
And even in the Bible, they talk about false prophets.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even inbuilt in, the book that establishes, especially Judaism and Christianity, it even talks about, like, hey, there are people out here that are probably going to be like, oh, yeah, you're Christian? Yeah, well, you need to do this, or you need to buy this, or, do it this way. But, like, what it comes down to is you've got to form kind of more the basic tenets of your religion. You have to form them and adhere to them. Like, you can't just listen to any one thing that comes along. Now, have an open mind, listen to what other people are saying, maybe incorporate some of those ideas into your belief. But when it comes down to it, like, you shouldn't just blindly accept something because it's supposedly, or it's said to be part of your religion.
Yeah. And continuing on with that whole process with me, so I started hallucinating really bad. I started having delusions. I started having very real thoughts and visions almost of just things going on and everything. And I referred to the Bible. It's all I knew really was like, put your trust in God and faith in God and everything like that. And I started getting to some of the biggest stuff with people having visions from God and stuff like that. And I was like, man, this is really similar to what I'm going through.
Right.
And I was being told that, oh, you're just really in tune spiritually and everything like that. That is a dangerous thing to tell somebody with schizophrenia.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and think about, through history, how many people have done something like, a mass shooting or something. And their whole reasoning was like, oh, well, God told me to do it.
Yeah. And the thing, I'm glad that I never, I mean, I believed it, but I was never told to do anything to hurt anybody or anything like that. But I just started looking at it. I was like, wow, because I was already thinking that the Bible, at least the translation of the Bible, was made to control the population, to do what they want to do with the King James version and everything. I feel like a lot of that had to do with control. And then I was just going through all the visions and with John in the cave and having the visions and all the information from that, the visions of angels, the weird like wheels and crazy shapes and stuff that the angels are described as. Like, there's never a point where an angel is described as a human looking person.
Right. It's just kind of a fabrication we made after the fact, probably for comfort / an easier way to comprehend / understand them. But yeah, never once. And for that matter, the common depiction of the devil is also nowhere in the Bible.
No, and the depiction of hell isn't even in the Bible.
Right.
We that everybody believed.
From Dante.
Yeah.
Like Dante's Inferno actually dictates a lot of what we believe hell is like.
Or that even people will spend an eternity in hell. At least in the New Testament, there is no actual anything in there that says people will spend eternity in hell. It actually says in Revelations that anybody that don't make it into heaven are destroyed. They're sent into the pits of hell and destroyed. It doesn't say that they'll live forever. It says they will be destroyed. You no longer exist. You never existed. That's basically what it says. Nothing says spending eternity. But and I'm speaking for New Testament, and that's the final book in the Bible.
Right.
But anyways, I was like, I believe this to this day. The people that came up with the stories, that came up with these visions, I believe that they had a mental health problem, a mental health issue. I believe they had schizophrenia or something where they hallucinated. And I feel like people took advantage of that. People in power took advantage of that because people were believing what prophets were saying.
Right.
And I still believe that. And not to shit on religion or anything, but that's just how I see it. Because I've experienced those things, and those things are not real.
Understandable. And actually, we kind of touched on a really good point there also with, the depictions that people commonly accept now that weren't actually in the Bible. There's so many things that are about like the current iteration of religions, and I can specifically speak to Christianity. I can't really say a whole lot in other religions, but at least in Christianity, there are a lot of things that are accepted as just part of the whole thing that were added much later.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, the fact that in this country we always have like a depiction of a white Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, that would be so far beyond like ridiculously impossible. I think as a comedian, Daniel Sloss has a couple of specials on Netflix. As he had said, it's like, if he was born in the Middle East and he was born white, that would have been the miracle.
Yeah, for real. Yup.
But yeah, it's just, I mean, that, like the depictions of the devil, the depictions of angels, like all of this, it's fabricated. It's made up by somebody else somewhere down the line. And it's just kind of become accepted as, oh, well, this is just part of Christianity.
Yeah.
And, things like that. If things like that have pervaded so thoroughly into the religion, what's to say that there aren't other things that have just become, standard, normalized, and everybody just kind of accepts them as, well, this is just the way things are. And, it kind of brings back, it's just that important that you look into things, you read into things, you don't just accept things blindly, because even with religion, it's not incorruptible. Like even if you have the most devout church in the country, like they probably still adhere to some of these, little additions and add-ons and things that were never part of the religion to begin with.
Like the rapture. That was actually started in the 80s.
But yeah, it's just like there's so many things, and it's not that they're bad churches. It's not that they're bad people.
No.
But if those kinds of ideas can pervade so thoroughly, so completely, then why couldn't other things?
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so I mean you grew up in the Southeast and everything. The hatred for Catholics in Southern Baptist or any I'm trying to think, the evangelical churches and stuff, like so many Southern churches in general, like they hate the Catholics. But the Catholics were the people that chose the books in the Bible that they read and say is the word of God, and that's the only thing that matters.
Right.
The Catholics chose the books that they read.
Right.
But they hate the Catholics. I think it's just, you don't believe everything that we believe, we hate you.
Well, and I mean, it's just, further division. It's not enough to just be Christian against other religions. Now you're part of this denomination, and you're like against other denominations of the same religion. And it's like, to what purpose?
Yeah.
Like it at a certain point, it's the way that people choose to practice their religion.
Yeah.
And so why should you be against them? Like, it's not like they're hurting you by doing it their way.
Yeah.
Like, you can still do it whatever way you want. Like,
yeah. I mean, I don't like the Catholic Church mostly because of the whole rape and pedophilia and everything that's going on. But that also happens in freaking Baptist churches too.
Yeah.
It happens.
It's one of those things where, I mean, I don't think there's any organization in the entirety of the world that is absolutely incorruptible.
Yeah.
Like regardless of what they're about, or like if it's religious or activist or anything, I don't think there's any organization that's incorruptible, because people are corruptible.
Oh, and,
yeah. I mean, it's just a fact of life. Not everybody is going to become corrupt, but I mean, at a certain point, it's about, a person's resolve versus the things that are trying to corrupt them.
Yeah.
And some people just have more resolve than others.
Yeah. And that's another reason not to follow what somebody says blindly and just parrot what they say. Absolutely. Because they are not perfect. And
it's not to say like, oh, well, you should be paranoid and distrust everybody.
No, not at all.
But you should at least verify. There's no reason why you can't do research for yourself, like look into things yourself, read up other sources, and try and verify, is this thing that this person is saying true? Is it reasonable? Like, does this make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that whole thing with my schizophrenia, I was questioning reality, which led me to question everything.
Yeah.
It led me to question my beliefs, all kinds of stuff. And the crazy thing is a lot of people that do develop schizophrenia end up getting more spiritual, and they believe more in religion, and I did the exact opposite, and I'm not the only one. I mean, I know I get downvoted on schizophrenia subreddit when people ask about
like stuff, and where politics and religion really isn't a subject that can be talked about a lot on that subreddit, because it is triggers.
Right.
It triggers a lot of people. Every now and then stuff does get through and talked about, and I've given my point of view on some of this stuff, and I have had people agree with me, and I've been downvoted a lot, but nothing said to me.
Right.
So, I mean, not all schizophrenia is the same.
No.
And not all schizophrenics believe the same thing. They don't have the same delusions, the same beliefs, just everything,
Just like with anything else.
Just with anybody.
They're all people.
Yeah.
Like they are different. They're not all the same, but they are still all people.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that I'm stuck in those delusions 24/7. Now, I mean, I have been stuck in episodes for a very extended amount of time, but I do eventually come out of it. Or luckily, I mean, I'm glad I haven't been to the point that I've had to be hospitalized. I think I should have been hospitalized some of the times, but my fear of being hospitalized kept me from really talking about some stuff with doctors and everything. And then later on, I talked to them and I'm like, I'm fine now. I do not want to go to the hospital. Like, I'm good now. I'm just telling you what I was going through.
Right.
And I'm fine. I'm as fine as I can be, I guess.
And I mean, that's understandable, because I think it kind of builds into the stigma a little bit, but there's definitely not a very good history in this country of the treatment of people in like asylums and things like that.
Which is weird, because, I mean, people that used to hallucinate and have visions, quote unquote visions, used to be like revered as prophets, as like people that could, spiritual leaders and stuff like that. But in this country, you are a terrible, violent person.
Well, what it comes down to is it's all about branding.
Yeah.
Like, really, if you really want to analyze some things like from the Bible also, like really mental illness at the time was considered demons in a lot of cases as well.
Yeah, there was that. There was that too.
It just depended on whether the person was violent or seemingly irrational, or if they were saying something that people liked.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what was it? On Vikings. I think a lot of like their visions and everything, like, or at least the way it was depicted, like it reminded me of my own head and the way I see things sometimes, and like I forgot what the dude was, their seer or something like that, the one with he had his eyes sewn shut or something. He was the bald-headed guy. It was in the tent. He always had them lick his hand and shit like that. Like, that dude was weird. And even Floki, like, he had visions. Yeah. And they, like, he was their go-to guy, like, whenever, like, stuff like that happened.
And in a lot of cases, I think, the truth behind, like, a lot of visions in a lot of cultures probably either comes down to one of two things. Either some type of mental illness or some type of drug usage. Yeah. Because you look at, especially in
they did use a lot of drugs.
In a lot of, like, Native American, like, cultures, they would use, like, a lot of things like peyote or whatnot. And it would, give them these visions, these, hallucinations.
Oh, yeah.
They took that a lot as, like, this whole divine experience and, things like that.
I mean, I've done mushrooms. Like, I've had very, I guess, spiritual, just supernatural, like, experiences where, like, I saw the world and everything in it, and the universe and everything in it.
Oh, yeah.
Down to the sand, to plants, like, everything. We're all connected. That's what I experienced every time I did mushrooms. And while I hallucinate now for free,
right? Hidden bonus.
Yeah, it's not always pleasant, but I mean, it's terrifying a lot of times, but I do have those those
You still
very
have some that are, more like actually pleasant.
Yeah, it's pleasant. I feel connected with everything.
Yeah.
And that led me to, a lot of that led me to believing that we all need to take care of each other. There is no team mentality. We need to protect what we have for everybody, not just what's convenient for us right now. Because we're all tied together, whether we like it or not. No matter what color your skin is or anything, we're all connected. Like our DNA, like everything, like we share at least something with everything.
Absolutely. And, to kind of paraphrase Carl Sagan, we are all-star stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. Well, we're at a minute 30 or an hour 30 minutes right now.
Wow, whole minute 30.
Yeah, a minute 30.
Man, we're getting some talking in.
Yeah. And see, like both of us probably had more stuff to talk about this week.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are definitely other things that I would have liked to touched on at some point. Changes coming in Anthem, things like that. I'd recently seen Captain Marvel.
Yeah, you saw it last night. Yeah,
not to do like any spoilers or anything, but just kind of general talks about movies, state of Marvel, things like that. There's definitely other things we'd like to talk about, but sometimes it's just kind of how conversations go.
And that's the point of this podcast is just a casual conversation about stuff going on, stuff that we're paying attention to, what we just like to get out there, to get off of our minds. And like we've said before, like this show is not scripted at all.
Right.
And we will flow from one topic to another. This one happened to stay around the same general area, but I mean, obviously it was important to us to talk about it because that's all we talked about.
Right. Now that being said, we would like to start maybe setting a little direction in conversation topics. And we're actually looking for maybe some viewer help in doing that. Something we'd like to open up is if there's some particular topic you'd like us to look into or like us to weigh in on, definitely let us know. We've got a Twitter set up at something to podcast, something to cast. At something to cast. Okay.
Yeah, this is limited characters.
Okay. So Twitter at something to cast. So it's something, the number 2 cast.
Yep.
And if you have any requests, just let us know with hashtag something to request.
Yeah. And I will make I'll do a tweet today after finishing the show. Actually, I'll do it tomorrow after the show gets posted on Friday. Well, that's today if you're listening on Friday.
Right. That name again is Mr. Plow.
Yeah. But I'm going to make a tweet. I'm going to pin it at the top. So I mean, you can reply to that, or you could just tweet at us, and it'll be at or hashtag something to request, something the number 2 request. But I'll like I said, I'll make a tweet. So if you want to consolidate it in one place, that's great. If not, we'll still get it.
Right.
So just you want us to talk about something. You just want our point of view on something. Like it might even turn into a full episode. We don't know.
Right.
Because we never know what we're going into every Thursday when we record. So none of this is planned. It just flows.
So I guess that's all we have for this week. So thank you for joining us, and join us again next week when we'll have something more to podcast.